So you're thinking about moving to Alameda and you've heard that the Bronze Coast or the Gold Coast might be the best place to live, but you're not really sure what that means or where the heck they even are. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, and I'm going to start right now. Hey guys, Hans Strazina with the Gunderman Group at Keller Williams Luxury International, coming to you with another video. This time it's part 2 of my neighborhood feature here on Central Alameda. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Bronze Coast and the Gold Coast, the difference and distinction between the two, and what you need to know about them. I did part 1 about Central Alameda Shoreline and Park Street, so make sure you check that out. I'll link to that right up here. If you get some value out of this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, because I am going to be continuing to bring out weekly content just like this, and you're not going to want to miss it. So thank you in advance for that. And without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's kick this thing off in the Bronze Coast. If you start driving around for just a couple minutes, one thing you'll notice is there's a ton of huge craftsmans and Victorians and some really beautiful, well-kept homes interspersed with smaller bungalows and craftsmans, as well as some apartment buildings. From 1940 until 1997, we had an active military base up at the West End, which I'll talk about further in another video. But this part of town had a lot of people moving into it, either chunking up some of these Victorians into smaller apartments or tearing them down entirely to build apartment complexes to house all those people. One quick fun fact about the Naval Air Base is that it was the launching off point for the Doolittle raids after Pearl Harbor. So for those of you history buffs, hopefully you'll appreciate that. Anyways, the Bronze Coast, again, is considered more of an affordable option, relatively speaking, to the Gold Coast. You can still get the tree-lined streets, the quietness, the slow traffic speeds in and out, and larger homes that are well kept and well maintained. But you are going to see, like I said, more density and smaller lots relative to the Gold Coast. The one nice thing, though, is it is still very neighborhood driven. It's actually a really great place to go trick-or-treating on Halloween, and you'll find that that part, as well as the Gold Coast, those homes and those communities really go all out for things like that. Plus the 4th of July parade that runs down Grand, which is the divider between the Gold Coast and the Bronze Coast, is an amazing spectacle that you're going to want to check out for yourself. All right, so now we're going to cross Grand and go into the Gold Coast. Like I've said before, you have the largest homes on the island and definitely the highest price point of any of the homes. As soon as you drive in, you'll kind of see that. Very large lots, a lot of swimming pools in the backyards, and a lot of privacy and quietness, as well as very huge, well-kept homes. Originally, this is where the San Francisco elite would come over during the summer and many weekends when it was foggy over in San Francisco and hang out with their families because the weather was just better over here, and build these huge estates that they would access via water. So many of those homes are actually oriented towards the bay as opposed to towards the street. And then subsequently, a lot of those have been sort of subdivided and redeveloped and built to accommodate more of a modern lifestyle. But either way, you've got a ton of beautiful, quiet, tree-lined streets, some huge old redwoods throughout the neighborhood, and a very quiet pace of life. In fact, there's no real through streets here to get in and out or to other parts of the island, so you really have to leave and go on to Grand or go on to Central to actually get anywhere else on the island. So it's going to have a really nice, quaint neighborhood feel to it. So talking about the schools real quick, like other parts of Central Alameda, the school district lines do not necessarily line up with the neighborhood boundaries in the same way. So some people are going to end up at Love Elementary, Wood Middle, and Alameda High School, and others are going to go to Franklin or Maya Lynn and then over to Encinal High School. There's also a private high school option called St. Joseph Notre Dame High School. which is in the heart of the Bronze Coast. So either way, make sure before you buy a home there, you do your research and look at the school finder to see which district you're going to go into, because it's not as intuitive as just lining up the typical neighborhood boundary. All right, so smack in the middle of the Gold Coast is Franklin Park. It's a very small but very usable park with a baseball diamond, a pool which has a private membership situation that you have to know someone to get in. So talk to your neighbors about that once you move in. But also a play structure, and then it's right across from Franklin Elementary, and is a wonderful place to hang out and go walk your dog or play with the kids. You can also walk and access fairly easily Washington Park, which I mentioned in part 1 of this video, but that gives you access to a huge dog park, some tennis courts, as well as, of course, the beach. So not as many park options here. Like I said, the yards are often much bigger, so you may not need access to a park in the first place. So even though you're kind of isolated in the middle of the island and not near a lot of the other major shopping parts, there are some cool little neighborhood sections that you're going to want to be aware of. At the corner of Encinal and Chestnut, you're going to have a little shopping district. You've got the Blue Dot Cafe, the Golden Needle Tailor, and of course the Chestnut Market, which is great for those last minute items or picking something up on your way home. There's also a gas station smack in the middle of the island where Central and Encinal come together, and in my opinion, they've always got pretty competitive prices, so it's a good option if you need to gas up right before you leave the island. And another great gem that's located on Encinal Avenue is the Encinal Nursery. Because a lot of these yards are really huge and well landscaped, people are always going to the Encinal Nursery to pick up rare and exotic plants, as well as the daily drivers to keep their yards looking awesome. It's definitely where I go whenever I'm looking for anything to put into my garden. So definitely one of those places you're going to want to check out and know about. And of course, you can get to Park Street, Shoreline, or Webster relatively easy, but unlike many other parts of the island, it's probably the least walkable section to those attractions. Most people are going to ride a bike or more likely drive. Because you are, like I said, kind of isolated in the middle of the island. It's just one consideration, but you do have the trade-off of it being much quieter and less traffic than other parts. All right, so one last thing that I want to make you aware of is because you're sort of in the middle of the island, commuting off can be a little bit of a challenge, especially if you have to do it around rush hour. A lot of people, if they're going into Oakland, will try and go through the Tube, which is at the end of Webster Street, and it'll take you right down into downtown Oakland. But as they keep developing the base, it's going to continue to get a little more congested. So it's something to be aware of if you're someone who has to drive off the island. That commute traffic can be a little bit of a challenge because you've only got a couple bridges in that tube that does back up. Now there are some alternative commuting options, and I did talk about that in my 5 things I love about Alameda video, and I'll link to that right up here so you can check those out. But just keep that in mind if you are considering moving to this part of Alameda. And that's it. That is the completion of part 2 of Central Alameda, when we just talked about the Gold Coast and the Bronze Coast. Really appreciate you guys checking it out. If you want to check out part 1, I'll link to it right up here, so it's easy to find. And if you got some value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because I am going to continue to put out weekly content just like this, and you're not going to want to miss a minute. So thanks so much for your support, and I'm going to sign it off. So this is Hans Strazina with the Gunderman Group at Keller Williams Luxury International, and I'll see you on the next one.